The black woman they humiliated in the park was the governor's wife. This black woman thinks she owns the place. Sergeant Daniel Brooks slams his patrol car into gear, tires screeching as he races toward the black woman jogging confidently through Riverside Park. She moves like she belongs here in this wealthy neighborhood where multi-million-dollar homes line perfectly manicured streets. "Let's strip search her right here in public," Officer Martinez sneers, cracking his knuckles. "Show everyone what happens to uppity people." "Do it slow," Brooks interrupts, eyes locked on his target. "I want her to beg." Dr. Sophia Carter adjusts her ponytail, completely unaware that two predators are racing toward her. She runs the same route she's taken for 4 years, the route that has always felt safe. Her hidden jewelry catches the morning light through her running belt, an $80,000 Cartier watch and state ID that could destroy Brooks' life. But Brooks has no idea what he's about to rip apart. What happens when a predator attacks the most powerful woman in Florida? Sophia Carter's feet hit the pavement in perfect rhythm as she glides through the tree-lined streets of Bayshore District. Each stride carries the confidence of someone who has never questioned her right to be anywhere. The morning air is crisp, filled with the scent of jasmine and the distant hum of lawnmowers tending to million-dollar estates. She waves to Mrs. Patterson, the elderly white woman watering her prize-winning roses. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" Sophia calls out, receiving a warm smile in return. This is her world, a place where her Stanford medical degree and 16 years as a pediatric surgeon have earned her respect, where her marriage to the governor has elevated her to near royalty status. Her Apple Watch buzzes with a text from her husband. "Love you, sweetheart. Stay safe out there." Sophia smiles, thinking how unnecessary that warning seems. She has jogged this route 912 times in the past 4 years. She knows every crack in the sidewalk, every friendly face behind every window. This neighborhood embraces her like a warm blanket. The mansions give way to the entrance of Riverside Park, where the real beauty begins. Sophia's pace quickens as she approaches her favorite stretch, the winding path that circles the lake, past the tennis courts where the city's elite gather for their morning matches. The sound of tennis balls creates a rhythm that matches her breathing. She pauses at her usual stretching spot, a wooden bench positioned perfectly to catch the morning sun. Sophia places one foot on the bench, leaning forward to stretch her hamstrings. Her movements are graceful, deliberate, the result of years of disciplined fitness routines. She feels powerful here, untouchable even. Another perfect morning in paradise, she whispers to herself, adjusting her ponytail. Her reflection on the lake's surface shows a woman in complete control of her destiny. The expensive athletic wear, Lululemon top, Nike running shorts, $210 shoes speaks to a life of privilege. But Sophia has earned every thread through years of sacrifice and achievement. What she doesn't see is the patrol car that has been following her for the past 4 blocks. 320 yards behind her, Brooks adjusts his binoculars for a better view. "Look at her all high and mighty," he mutters to Martinez, stretching like she's putting on a show. His voice carries the resentment of a man who has watched too many successful black people move through spaces he believes they haven't earned. Probably thinks we work for her. Martinez agrees, his own insecurities bubbling to the surface. Both men have spent their careers feeling overlooked, underpaid, and underappreciated. Seeing Sophia's obvious success triggers something dark in their minds, a need to remind her of what they perceive as the natural order. Brooks starts the engine, time to bring her back down to earth. Sophia completes her stretching routine, completely unaware of the conversation taking place in the patrol car. She checks her fitness tracker, heart rate optimal, pace perfect for her planned 5.5-mile run. Her body feels strong today, energized by the knowledge that she's exactly where she belongs. She begins to run again, her form textbook perfect. Years of competitive running in medical school trained her body to move with efficiency and grace. The path ahead is familiar, comforting. Past the playground where wealthy children laugh under their nanny's watchful eyes. Around the curve where the morning joggers nod in silent camaraderie. Sophia's breathing settles into a meditative rhythm. This is her therapy, her escape from the pressures of being the governor's wife. Here she's not managing charity galas or smiling for cameras. She's simply Sophia running toward whatever the day might bring. Her phone buzzes with a reminder about tonight's education fundraiser. She thinks about the speech she'll give, the donors she'll charm, the policies she'll advocate for. Sophia Carter has always been a woman who gets things done, who uses her privilege to lift others up. She has no idea that in less than 10 minutes, she'll need every ounce of that strength just to survive. The patrol car accelerates. Sophia notices the engine sound growing louder, but assumes it's just another vehicle passing through the park. She steps slightly to the right, giving the car room to pass. Good citizens share the road, after all. Her mother raised her to be considerate, to never assume conflict where none exists. But the engine sound doesn't fade. Instead, it grows closer. Sophia glances over her shoulder and sees the black and white patrol car matching her pace about 55 yards back. Her first thought is protective. Perhaps they're keeping an eye on the park for everyone's safety. She feels a warm appreciation for the city's finest doing their job. Brooks' radio crackles. Unit 63, resident called in a second complaint, says the subject is now acting suspicious near the children's playground. Approach with caution. Copy that, Brooks responds, his voice already charged with anticipation. He knows this call is fabricated. No resident has called twice. But the radio creates the paper trail he needs, the justification for what's about to happen. Sophia continues running, her mind wandering to her daughter's upcoming college graduation. She pictures the pride on her husband's face, the photos they'll take, the family dinner they've planned. Life has been generous to the Carter family, and Sophia never takes that for granted. The morning sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across the park's perfectly manicured lawns. Sophia feels the familiar endorphin rush beginning to kick in, that natural high that has kept her addicted to running since college. Her ponytail bounces rhythmically as she navigates the gentle curves of the path. Other morning exercisers are beginning to populate the park. Dog walkers with their golden retrievers, elderly couples taking their constitutional young mothers pushing expensive strollers. This is Sophia's tribe, her community of people who understand that fitness and self-care are investments in a better life. She waves to Dr. Harrison from Memorial University, who recognizes her, and returns a respectful nod. Sophia has given guest lectures at his medical school, sharing her expertise in pediatric cardiology with the next generation of doctors. These casual encounters remind her of the professional respect she commands in this city. The patrol car's engine grows louder still. Sophia checks her watch again. 6:52 in the morning. Perfect timing to complete her 5.5-mile loop and return home for coffee with her husband before his morning briefings begin. She mentally reviews her own schedule. Hospital rounds at 9:30. Lunch with the Education Committee at 12:30. Charity Board meeting at 3:15. The fundraiser tonight at 7:30. Her life runs like clockwork, every detail planned and executed with surgical precision. Sophia Carter is a woman who controls her environment, who shapes outcomes through careful planning and relentless execution. The sound of the patrol car's door slamming shut behind her changes everything. "Ma'am, stop right there." The command cuts through the morning air like a blade so sharp and unexpected that Sophia stumbles slightly before catching her balance. She turns, pulling out her earbuds, confusion replacing the peaceful meditation that had been guiding her run. Two white officers approach her with the purposeful stride of men who have found exactly what they were looking for. "What are you doing here?" Brooks' voice carries the authority of 16 years wearing a badge. But underneath lurks something hungrier, the tone of a predator who has found isolated prey. His hand rests casually on his weapon as he approaches Sophia, each step calculated to intimidate. Sophia removes her earbuds completely, her breathing still elevated from running, but now tinged with confusion. "I'm sorry, officer. Is there a problem? I'm just jogging." "We received reports of suspicious activity in this area," Martinez adds, flanking Sophia's left side in a maneuver they've practiced countless times. The two officers move like wolves, instinctively creating angles that prevent escape while maintaining the illusion of a routine police encounter. Sophia looks around the peaceful park setting. Families beginning to arrive for morning walks, tennis players warming up on distant courts, the familiar rhythm of a community starting its day. Suspicious activity? I don't understand. I run here every morning. Brooke's eyes narrow as he studies her expensive athletic wear, the confident way she holds herself, the clear assumption in her voice that this interaction will end reasonably. Everything about Sophia Carter screams privilege to him, and that privilege feels like a personal insult. Every morning, Brooke circles her slowly, forcing Sophia to turn to keep him in view. You live around here. The question hangs in the air like a trap. Sophia hesitates, not because she's uncertain, but because she's finally beginning to understand that her honest answer might not be what these officers want to hear. Her instincts, honed by years of navigating professional and political environments, tell her that something is fundamentally wrong with this encounter. I live in the city, Sophia responds carefully, using the diplomatic vagueness that has served her well in countless political situations. She doesn't want to lie, but revealing that she lives in the governor's mansion feels like information these men might not handle appropriately. Martinez snorts with derision. The city, right? What part of the city? Sophia's heart rate, which had been returning to normal after her run, begins to climb again. These officers aren't asking routine questions. They're fishing for something, looking for a reason to escalate an encounter that should never have begun in the first place. Officers, I'm not sure what this is about, but I'd like to continue my run if that's all right. Sophia's voice maintains its professional calm, but she takes a small step backward, creating space. Her medical training has taught her to recognize when a situation is deteriorating, and every instinct tells her that these men are looking for conflict. Brooks moves forward, closing the distance Sophia tried to create. You don't get to decide when this conversation is over. We're conducting an investigation. An investigation of what exactly? Sophia's question is reasonable, logical, the kind of inquiry any citizen has the right to make. But in Brooks' mind, it represents defiance, an uppity attitude that needs correcting. Turn around and place your hands on the patrol car. The command explodes into the morning air with such sudden force that a nearby jogger stops mid-stride, turning to stare at the developing scene. Sophia's confusion transforms into something approaching alarm. I'm sorry, what? Am I under arrest? What's the charge? Brooks' face hardens with the righteous anger of a man whose authority has been questioned. In his 16-year career, he has learned that compliance comes through intimidation, that questioning his orders represents a challenge to the natural hierarchy he believes keeps society functioning. Failure to cooperate with a police investigation, suspicious behavior in a public area. Do you want me to add resisting arrest to that list? Sophia's hands begin to tremble slightly, not with fear, but with the dawning realization that she has encountered something genuinely dangerous. These officers aren't interested in public safety or legitimate law enforcement. They're interested in power, in putting her in her place, in teaching her a lesson about where she belongs. Where are you from? Tell us in the comments below. And if you're loving this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more. I am cooperating, Sophia says, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I've answered your questions. I'm not resisting anything. I simply asked what I'm being accused of, which is my legal right. The mention of legal rights triggers something dark in Brooks' expression. Citizens who know their rights represent the enemy, educated troublemakers who think they can outsmart the badge, who need to be reminded of the reality of power on the street. Your legal rights, Brooks laughs, a sound devoid of humor. Lady, your legal rights are whatever I say they are right now. A small crowd begins to gather. Dog walkers slow their pace. Joggers alter their routes to get a better view. Tennis players on nearby courts pause their warm-ups. The morning routine of Riverside Park adjusts itself around the developing drama, drawn by the universal human fascination with conflict. Sophia notices the gathering audience and feels a moment of relief. Surely these officers won't escalate things further in front of witnesses. Surely the presence of other people will restore some measure of sanity to this encounter. She couldn't be more wrong. Brooks sees the crowd differently, as an audience for the lesson he's about to teach, as witnesses to what happens when people forget their place. His ego, already inflated by years of unchecked authority, swells with the opportunity to demonstrate his power in front of the very community that Sophia thinks will protect her. Last chance, Brooks announces loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. Turn around and assume the position, or we'll do this the hard way. Sophia's mind races through her options. She could comply and hope this nightmare ends quickly. She could continue to assert her rights and risk escalation. She could reveal her identity and end this immediately, but something tells her that might make things worse, not better. Officer, I don't understand what position you want me to assume. I haven't done anything wrong. Brooks' smile turns predatory, then we'll teach you. Martinez produces zip-tie restraints from his belt, the plastic cuffs that leave marks and create the kind of evidence that disappears after a few days. The crowd murmurs with unease, sensing that whatever comes next will cross lines that shouldn't be crossed. Sophia Carter, who woke up this morning as one of the most powerful women in Florida, is about to learn how quickly privilege can evaporate in the face of unchecked authority and racial hatred. Remove your shoes now. Brooks' command carries the authority of someone who has done this before, who knows exactly how to strip away dignity one piece at a time. Sophia stares at him in disbelief, her mind struggling to process how a routine morning jog has escalated to this point. My shoes, officer. I don't understand why. Because I said so. Brooks' hand moves to his baton. We need to check them for contraband. You could be hiding drugs, weapons, anything in those expensive sneakers. Sophia looks down at her $210 Nike running shoes, the same pair she's worn on hundreds of runs through this very park. The absurdity of the request hits her like a physical blow. These officers are manufacturing reasons to humiliate her, creating justifications for searches that have no basis in law or reason. This is harassment, Sophia says quietly, but her hands move toward her shoelaces anyway. The crowd has grown larger, phones appearing like digital witnesses to document whatever comes next. Sophia hopes their presence will provide some protection, some accountability that will prevent this situation from spiraling further out of control. She unties her shoes slowly, buying time while her mind races through possibilities. She could run, but fleeing from police would give them actual justification for chase and capture. She could scream for help, but who would intervene against uniformed officers? She could reveal her identity, but something tells her that might provoke an even more violent response. Sophia slips off her shoes and stands barefoot on the cold morning pavement. The simple act of removing her footwear somehow makes her feel exponentially more vulnerable, more exposed. Brooks takes the shoes and shakes them aggressively, turning them upside down as if expecting drugs to fall out like loose change. Where did you steal these? Martinez asks, examining the shoes with exaggerated suspicion. Nike Air Zoom Pegasus, retail price about $210. That's expensive footwear for someone from your neighborhood. They're mine. I bought them at the Westfield Mall Nike store. Sophia's voice remains steady, but her bare feet on the concrete remind her of how quickly power can be stripped away. She shifts her weight from foot to foot, the cold seeping through her soles. Westfield Mall, Brooks laughs. Sure you did. What did you do? Shoplift them? Use a stolen credit card? The racial implications hang in the air like poison gas. Sophia feels the familiar sting of assumptions she's fought her entire life. The presumption that her success must be illegitimate, that her possessions must be stolen, that someone who looks like her couldn't possibly belong in spaces of privilege and comfort. Officer, I'm a doctor. I can afford my own shoes. Brooks' expression darkens. The claim of professional status clearly irritates him, representing exactly the kind of uppity attitude he believes needs correcting. A doctor, right? What kind of doctor? Pediatric cardiac surgeon at Children's Medical Center. The specificity of Sophia's answer gives Brooks pause for exactly 3 seconds before his suspicion reasserts itself. Prove it. Prove what? Prove you're a doctor. Show me some ID, some medical license, something that backs up this story. Sophia realizes she's walked into a trap. Any identification she carries will reveal her true identity, and her instincts tell her that these officers aren't ready for that revelation. But refusing to provide identification will give them another excuse to escalate. My ID is in my running belt, Sophia says carefully. I'd need to reach for it. Slowly, Brooks orders, his hand moving back to his weapon. Any sudden movements and we'll assume you're going for a weapon. Sophia reaches toward her running belt with deliberate slowness, her movements exaggerated to demonstrate compliance. But before she can access the hidden compartment, Martinez grabs her wrist. Wait, we need to search you first. You could be hiding anything in that belt. Drugs, weapons, stolen goods. Sophia's heart pounds as she realizes the officers are creating a pretext for a body search. That's not necessary. I can show you my identification right now. We determine what's necessary, Brooks says, moving behind Sophia. Put your hands on the hood of the patrol car and spread your legs. The command sends a chill through Sophia that has nothing to do with the morning air. She looks around at the growing crowd, at the phones recording every moment, at the faces that reflect her own growing horror at what's happening. Officer, this is completely inappropriate. I'm requesting a female officer for any search. Female officer, Martinez laughs. Lady, this is what you get. Hands on the car, legs spread now. Sophia complies because she has no choice, placing her palms flat against the cold metal of the patrol car. The position forces her to lean forward slightly, making her feel even more exposed and vulnerable. Her bare feet provide no stability, no sense of being grounded. Brooks approaches from behind. We're going to check you for weapons and contraband. Don't move unless instructed. His hands begin at her shoulders, pressing down with unnecessary force. Sophia closes her eyes and tries to transport herself somewhere else, to her office at the hospital, to the governor's mansion, to anywhere but this moment where her dignity is being systematically stripped away. Check her hair, Martinez suggests with obvious malice. You people like to hide drugs in your hair. Brooks' hands move to Sophia's ponytail, grabbing it roughly and running his fingers through the strands. The intimate violation of having her hair searched by a hostile stranger makes Sophia's skin crawl. She grits her teeth and endures it, knowing that any resistance will be met with escalation. Lot of hair, Brooks comments, tugging harder than necessary. Could hide anything in here. Crack rocks, pills, razor blades. Sophia feels tears forming in her eyes, but refuses to let them fall. She won't give these men the satisfaction of seeing her break, won't provide them with the complete submission they're obviously seeking. Brooks' hands move down to her athletic top, lifting the hem slightly. Need to check under here for weapons. That's assault, Sophia says quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. That's police procedure, Brooks responds, his hands becoming more aggressive. You got a problem with police procedure. The crowd murmurs with increasing unease. Several people have begun recording with their phones, capturing every moment of what's clearly becoming an abuse of power. Sophia can hear voices in the background. This is wrong, someone should call this in. Where's his supervisor? But no one steps forward to intervene. No one challenges the officers directly. The badge still carries enough authority to keep the crowd at bay, even as they witness what's obviously becoming a violation. Brooks' hands reach Sophia's running belt, the hidden compartment where her jewelry and identification wait like time bombs. His fingers probe the fabric, searching for the opening that will change everything. What's in here? He demands, his voice taking on a new edge of excitement. Brooks' fingers find the hidden zipper of Sophia's running belt and yank it open with violent force. The sudden motion jerks Sophia forward against the patrol car, her face pressing against the cold metal as her balance fails on bare feet. Well, what do we have here? Brooks' voice drips with anticipation as he probes the concealed compartment. His hands become increasingly aggressive, no longer pretending this is about contraband. This is about power, about breaking someone he perceives as too proud, too successful, too comfortable in spaces where he believes she doesn't belong. "Please," Sophia whispers, her voice barely audible. "You're hurting me." "Shut up," Martinez snarls, moving to her side. "We'll tell you when to talk." Brooks' exploration of the running belt becomes more invasive, his hands deliberately rough as they search through the hidden pocket. Sophia can feel him finding her carefully concealed jewelry, but instead of removing it, he continues the search with increasing aggression. "She's got something good in here," Brooks announces to Martinez loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Real good stuff. Probably stolen goods from some rich house." Sophia's athletic dress catches on Brooks' badge as he leans against her back, the fabric pulling tight. She feels the material strain, feels the threads beginning to give way under the pressure of his aggressive searching. "Officer, please be careful with my dress." "I said shut up," Brooks shouts, grabbing a handful of Sophia's dress fabric and yanking hard to assert his dominance. The high-quality material designed for flexibility and movement was never meant to withstand this kind of violent manipulation. The fabric tears with a sickening ripping sound that cuts through the morning air like a scream. The tear runs from Sophia's shoulder blade diagonally across her back to her waist, exposing her sports bra and a significant portion of her bare skin to the growing crowd. Sophia gasps and instinctively tries to cover herself, but Brooks forces her hands back onto the car with brutal efficiency. "Don't move. The suspect is attempting to resist and conceal evidence." "I'm not resisting anything," Sophia cries out, tears finally breaking free and streaming down her cheeks. "You just destroyed my dress. You're exposing me in public." The crowd erupts in shocked murmurs and angry voices. Phones capture every moment as Sophia Carter, one of Florida's most powerful women, stands humiliated and exposed in the place where she has always felt safest. The morning joggers, dog walkers, and tennis players have been transformed into unwilling witnesses to what's clearly becoming a systematic abuse of power. "That's what happens when you don't cooperate with police investigations," Brooks says with obvious satisfaction, stepping back to admire his handiwork. Sophia stands there in her torn dress, the fabric hanging in strips, trying desperately to hold the remnants together while maintaining her forced position against the car. "This is completely inappropriate," a woman in the crowd shouts. "You can't strip search someone in public like this." Brooks' head snaps toward the voice with predatory intensity. "Ma'am, step back or you'll be arrested for interfering with police business." The threat temporarily silences direct protest, but the phones keep recording. Multiple angles capture Sophia's humiliation, documenting every moment of her degradation in high-definition detail that will soon spread across social media platforms worldwide. Martinez produces handcuffs from his utility belt, the metal restraints glinting in the morning sun like instruments of medieval torture. "Time to properly restrain the suspect for transport." "Transport?" Sophia turns her head, her voice rising with genuine panic. "You're arresting me for what crime? I demand to know what I'm being charged with." "Disturbing the peace, failure to cooperate with a lawful police investigation, resisting arrest, and now indecent exposure." Brooks recites the fabricated charges like a prayer he's memorized through years of practice. "Turn around and face me." Sophia slowly pivots to face the officers, still clutching desperately at the torn fabric of her dress. Her exposed skin makes her feel utterly vulnerable, stripped of the professional armor and social status that have protected her throughout her accomplished career. The approaching handcuffs represent the complete loss of control, the final surrender of her dignity to these men who seem determined to destroy her. "This is wrong," someone in the crowd calls out with increasing boldness. "You people need to stop this right now. She hasn't done anything." Brooks' response is swift and intimidating. Anyone who continues to interfere will be arrested for obstruction of justice and aiding a criminal suspect. His voice carries the authority of someone accustomed to compliance, someone whose word has rarely been challenged in 16 years of policing. The threat creates a temporary silence among the witnesses, but their phones continue recording. Sophia can see the devices capturing her humiliation from multiple angles. Wide shots that show the full context of her abuse, close-ups that document the tears on her face, medium shots that capture the torn fabric and exposed skin. Martinez approaches with the handcuffs, his movements deliberate and theatrical. "Put your hands behind your back, ma'am. You're under arrest." The metal restraints click onto Sophia's wrists with a finality that echoes through the morning air. The handcuffs force her to arch her back slightly, making the torn dress gap open even wider and exposing more of her sports bra to the watching crowd. Sophia has never felt more exposed, more helpless, more completely at the mercy of people who seem to derive pleasure from her suffering. "Please," Sophia says, her voice breaking with emotion and desperation. "I have a teenage daughter. She might see this footage on social media. Please don't do this to me. I'm begging you to show some basic human decency." Brooks' response demonstrates just how far beyond basic human decency this encounter has traveled. He spins Sophia around and slams her against the patrol car again, this time with the handcuffs preventing her from protecting herself from the impact. Her face hits the metal with a dull thud that sends shock waves through the watching crowd and draws audible gasps of horror. "You should have thought about your precious daughter before you came here acting like you own this neighborhood." Brooks snarls directly into her ear, his breath hot against her skin. His words carry the weight of years of accumulated resentment, of watching successful black people move through spaces he believes should be reserved for others like himself. Martinez begins photographing Sophia with his personal smartphone, not the official police camera that would create an evidence trail subject to department oversight. The images he captures show her in the most humiliating position possible, handcuffed, partially clothed, pressed against a police car like a common criminal rather than the accomplished professional she actually is. Evidence documentation, Martinez explains to his partner with a barely concealed grin. But his expression tells a completely different story. These photographs are trophies, personal souvenirs of their conquest over someone they perceive as uppity and deserving of comprehensive humiliation. Sophia closes her eyes tightly and tries to transport her consciousness away from this nightmare scenario. She thinks about her husband, probably reviewing policy briefings in his office right now, completely unaware that his wife is being systematically assaulted by the very officers sworn to protect and serve the citizens of Florida. She thinks about her daughter, probably studying for finals at Columbia Medical School, trusting that her mother is safely completing her routine morning exercise. Brooks returns to searching Sophia's running belt with renewed aggression and obvious enjoyment of her helplessness. His hands probe the hidden compartment while Sophia remains pressed against the car, unable to see what he's doing, but feeling every invasive touch as a personal violation. "Jackpot time," Brooks whispers to Martinez, his fingers finally closing around something substantial in the hidden pocket. He pulls out Sophia's jewelry with deliberate slowness, savoring each moment like a predator displaying fresh prey to establish dominance. The Cartier watch emerges first, its $80,000 price tag immediately apparent to anyone familiar with luxury timepieces. The platinum bracelet catches the morning sunlight, sparkling like captured stars against the dark asphalt. Even Brooks, despite his working-class background, recognizes quality when he sees it. "Holy Mother of God," Martinez breathes, staring at the watch with undisguised amazement. "That's genuine Cartier. Look at that craftsmanship." The diamond earrings follow next, then the wedding ring, a 3.5-carat masterpiece that Sophia received on her 11th wedding anniversary as a symbol of their enduring love and shared success. Each piece of jewelry that hits the pavement creates a new wave of murmurs from the crowd, a new level of confusion about who this woman really is and how she could possibly afford such expensive accessories. "Where exactly did you steal these luxury items?" Brooks demands, holding up the diamond earrings so they catch the light. "Cartier diamonds, Tiffany wedding ring, Swiss timepiece. We're talking about serious felony theft charges here." "They belong to me," Sophia says weakly, her voice muffled by her painful position against the car. "I can prove they're legitimately mine if you'll just listen to me." "Right," Martinez laughs with genuine amusement. and I'm the Queen of England. But something about the obvious quality and authenticity of the jewelry gives Brooks a moment of pause. These aren't cheap knockoffs or even expensive replicas. These are genuine articles, the kind of pieces that retail for more than his annual police salary. A small nagging doubt begins to creep into his mind, though his ego refuses to acknowledge it consciously. Sophia feels her Florida state identification card slipping from the torn fabric of her dress, the plastic rectangle sliding down her leg toward her bare feet. She tries to shift positions slightly to prevent its fall, but the handcuffs and Brooks' substantial weight against her back make any meaningful movement completely impossible. The official ID card lands face up on the asphalt, just inches from Brooks' polished black police boots. Sophia's professional state photograph stares up at him from the plastic card, along with official text that will change absolutely everything in approximately 35 seconds. Brooks' boot shifts slightly on the asphalt as he adjusts his position, and his peripheral vision catches the white rectangle of Sophia's state identification card lying face up on the pavement. At first, his mind doesn't process what he's seeing, just another piece of debris from the search, another item to be cataloged and dismissed. He bends down casually to pick up what he assumes is a driver's license, expecting to find another piece of evidence to support his narrative about Sophia's criminal behavior. His fingers close around the plastic card, and he glances at it with the bored expression of someone completing routine paperwork. The photograph hits his consciousness first, Sophia's professional headshot taken in the formal style reserved for high-level government officials. But it's the text below the photo that stops his world completely. Sophia Carter, First Lady, State of Florida. The words blur together as Brooks' brain struggles to process information that contradicts everything he believed about this morning's encounter. His hands begin to tremble imperceptibly as the full implications crash down on him like a collapsing building. "What's wrong?" Martinez asks, noticing his partner's sudden change in demeanor. "What's on the card?" Brooks' mouth opens and closes soundlessly like a fish drowning in air. His face drains of all color, transforming from the confident pink of authority to the ashen gray of a man whose life has just ended. The identification card falls from his nerveless fingers, fluttering back to the asphalt like a death warrant. Brooks, Martinez's voice carries a note of growing concern. "What the hell is on that ID?" Brooks' voice comes out as a whisper so quiet that Martinez has to lean in to hear him. That's the governor's wife." The words hang in the morning air like a bomb that hasn't exploded yet. Martinez's expression shifts from confusion to disbelief to dawning horror as he processes what his partner has just said. "What did you just say?" "The governor's wife." Brooks' voice cracks on the words. We just assaulted the governor's wife." Martinez snatches the identification card from the ground, his hands shaking as he studies the official state seal, the formal photograph, the unmistakable text that identifies Sophia Carter as the First Lady of Florida. The card represents 16 years of police experience evaporating in a single moment. "This can't be real," Martinez whispers, his voice barely audible. "This has to be fake. Some kind of mistake." But even as he speaks the words, Martinez knows they're lies. The identification is obviously genuine, bearing all the security features and official seals that would be impossible to counterfeit. More importantly, everything about Sophia suddenly makes sense. The expensive jewelry, the confident demeanor, the expectation of being treated with respect. Brooks steps back from Sophia as if she's suddenly become radioactive. His hands, which moments ago were aggressively searching her body, now hover in the air as if afraid to touch anything. The authority that has defined his identity for 16 years crumbles like a house of cards in a hurricane. "Ma'am," Brooks begins, his voice cracking with desperation. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. There's been a terrible mistake, a misunderstanding." Sophia, still pressed against the patrol car in handcuffs and torn clothing, turns her head slowly to look at him. Her eyes red with tears and bright with pain, focus on his face with laser intensity. "A misunderstanding." Sophia's voice is quiet, controlled, but underneath runs a current of fury that makes Brooks' blood turn to ice water. Is that what you call sexually assaulting the governor's wife in front of 50 witnesses? The crowd, which has been murmuring with increasing agitation, suddenly erupts as someone shouts, "Did she just say governor's wife? Oh my God, they just attacked the governor's wife." The information spreads through the gathered witnesses like wildfire, each person passing the shocking news to newcomers, until the entire crowd understands the magnitude of what they've just witnessed. Phones that were already recording suddenly become precious evidence of the most catastrophic police encounter in Florida's recent history. Martinez fumbles with his keys, his hands shaking so violently he can barely manipulate the handcuff mechanism. "Please, Mrs. Carter, let me get these restraints off you immediately." "Don't touch me." Sophia's command stops Martinez cold. "Don't you dare touch me again." Brooks tries to remove his police jacket to cover Sophia's torn dress, but she recoils from him with such obvious revulsion that he stumbles backward. Every gesture of attempted assistance only emphasizes the horror of what he's done, the irreversible nature of his actions. "Please," Brooks begs, his voice breaking completely, "please don't tell the governor. We can work this out. We can make this right." Sophia slowly turns to face both officers fully, her dignity intact despite her torn clothing and obvious trauma. When she speaks, her voice carries the authority of someone accustomed to being heard, someone whose words shape policy and determine careers. "Make this right?" Sophia's laugh is devoid of humor, sharp as broken glass. "You want to make this right? You handcuffed me, tore my dress, photographed me half naked, and conducted an illegal search of my body in front of dozens of witnesses. You called me racial slurs and threatened to plant evidence on me." Each word hits Brooks like a physical blow. He can see his career dying, his pension evaporating, his family's future crumbling with every syllable that comes from Sophia's mouth. "We didn't know," Martinez starts to protest. "You didn't know because you didn't care to know," Sophia cuts him off with surgical precision. "You saw a black woman exercising in a space you thought she didn't belong, and you decided to teach her a lesson. The only mistake you made was choosing the wrong black woman." The crowd has grown to over 120 people, all recording, all witnessing the complete destruction of two police careers in real time. Social media notifications begin pinging as the first videos upload, as hashtags begin trending, as the story starts its viral journey across the internet. Brooks drops to his knees on the asphalt, the full weight of his actions finally crushing him completely. His 16-year career, his reputation, his family security, everything destroyed in 22 minutes of unchecked hatred and abuse of power. The first video uploads to Twitter at exactly 7:38 in the morning, 95 seconds after Sophia's identity is revealed. The 35-second clip captured by a morning jogger shows Brooks on his knees in front of a half-dressed black woman in handcuffs. The caption reads, "Miami police just assaulted the governor's wife. Hashtag justice for Sophia. Hashtag Miami police scandal." Within 3 minutes, the video has been retweeted 914 times. Within 5 minutes, it reaches 55,000 views. By the time Sophia finally gets her hands free from the handcuffs, her assault is trending #1 on Twitter nationwide. Sophia stands beside the patrol car holding the torn remnants of her dress together with trembling hands. Someone from the crowd, a young mother with a jogging stroller, offers her a sweatshirt, which Sophia accepts gratefully. The simple act of kindness from a stranger feels like water in a desert after the cruelty she's just endured. "Thank you," Sophia whispers, pulling the borrowed sweatshirt over her torn dress. Her voice is hoarse from crying, but her dignity remains unbroken. Even in her trauma, she maintains the composure that has carried her through years of political and social challenges. Brooks and Martinez stand frozen beside their patrol car, watching their lives disintegrate in real time through the screens of dozens of phones. Neither officer has any idea how to handle a situation that has spiraled so completely beyond their control. The morning that began with such confidence in their authority has transformed into a nightmare beyond their worst imaginations. Sophia reaches for her phone with shaking hands. Her first call needs to be to her husband before he learns about this through social media or news reports. The governor of Florida should not discover his wife's assault through Twitter feeds or cable news alerts. "Sophia, honey, you're supposed to be running. Why are you calling?" Her husband's voice carries the comfortable familiarity of 24 years of marriage, completely unaware that their world has just exploded in the most public way possible. "Michael," Sophia's voice breaks on his name. "Something terrible has happened. I need you to send security to Riverside Park right now. I've been assaulted by Miami police officers." The silence on the other end of the line stretches for 5 seconds that feel like hours. When the governor finally speaks, his voice has transformed from husband to leader, from private citizen to the most powerful man in Florida dealing with an unprecedented crisis. "Are you hurt? Are you safe right now? Do you need medical attention?" His questions come rapid fire, the product of crisis management training and genuine terror for his wife's well-being. "I'm safe now, but Michael, there are videos, lots of videos. This is going to be everywhere in minutes. We need to prepare for the worst media storm of our lives." While Sophia speaks to her husband, her assault continues its viral journey across social media platforms with unstoppable momentum. TikTok users begin creating reaction videos, their faces showing genuine shock and outrage at the footage. Instagram stories spread the news through networks of influence, reaching millions of followers within minutes. Facebook groups dedicated to social justice share the footage with increasingly outraged commentary and calls for immediate action. The hashtag "governor's wife assaulted" becomes the top trending topic on Twitter globally, surpassing major international news events. Hashtag "Miami police brutality" follows closely behind, accumulating hundreds of thousands of posts per hour. Hashtag "Sophia Carter justice" begins gaining momentum as users learn her name and professional background. Brooks' personal phone begins buzzing incessantly with notifications, missed calls from his wife, text messages from friends and family who have seen the videos, voicemails from reporters who have somehow already obtained his contact information through public record searches. Each notification feels like another nail in the coffin of his former life. Martinez tries desperately calling his police union representative, but the call goes directly to voicemail. He tries again, then again, growing more frantic with each failed connection. The union that has protected him throughout his career seems to have vanished precisely when he needs them most. Even his union representative, watching the videos spread across social media, knows this case is too toxic to touch. At the Miami police headquarters downtown, Chief Thomas Anderson's assistant bursts into his office without knocking, violating protocols in her urgency. "Chief, you need to see this right now. It's about Brooks and Martinez." She hands him her phone, showing the viral video that's been viewed 2.5 million times in the past 9 minutes. Chief Anderson's face goes completely white as he watches his officers systematically assault and humiliate the most powerful woman in Florida. His phone immediately begins ringing. The mayor's office, the state capitol, CNN, Fox News, the FBI field office in Miami. Each incoming call represents another layer of accountability he'll have to face. "Get Brooks and Martinez back to headquarters immediately," Anderson barks to his assistant while reaching for his crisis management manual. "A full internal affairs investigation starts right now, and get our legal team on a conference call within the hour." But it's already far too late for any meaningful damage control. The video has escaped the bounds of social media and entered the realm of mainstream news coverage. CNN breaks into regular programming with a breaking news alert featuring dramatic red graphics. The Chiron reads, "Florida police assault governor's wife during morning jog." Sophia finally gets into her own Mercedes, the borrowed sweatshirt providing some measure of dignity as she drives home with a hastily assigned police escort. Different officers, ones who treat her with the deference and respect she should have received from the beginning. The irony is not lost on her that she needs police protection from police officers. Behind her, Brooks and Martinez remain in Riverside Park, surrounded by growing crowds and an increasing number of news cameras that have arrived with stunning speed. Neither man has any idea what to do next, how to begin addressing the catastrophe they've created through their own actions. Brooke's wife, Rachel, calls from their suburban home, her voice shrill with panic and confusion. "Daniel, what the hell did you do? The neighbors are calling me nonstop, saying you're all over the news for attacking some woman. There are people gathering outside our house with signs." "Rachel, take the kids and go to your mother's house immediately, right now. Don't pack anything, just leave." Brooke's voice is mechanical, distant, like a man reading his own obituary while still breathing. "Daniel, what did you do to us? What did you do to our family?" Rachel's voice rises to near hysteria as the reality of their situation begins to sink in. Brooks hangs up without answering because there is no answer that makes sense, no explanation that justifies the complete destruction of everything he's worked for throughout his adult life. His 16-year career, his family's financial security, his children's futures, all destroyed in 22 minutes of unchecked hatred and abuse of power. Martinez fares no better with his personal relationships. His girlfriend texts him with obvious terror. "Is this you in these videos? People are saying you sexually assaulted the governor's wife. I'm scared. Don't come home. My parents say I can't see you anymore." The woman he planned to propose to next month has just cut him out of her life, based on 65 seconds of viral video footage. The international news media begins picking up the story with remarkable speed, transforming a local incident into a global symbol. BBC News runs the headline, "American police officers assault governor's wife in public park." Deutsche Welle covers it under U.S. police brutality reaches new heights. The story becomes a symbol of American dysfunction, broadcast to audiences around the world who already view American policing with suspicion. Mayor Helen Rodriguez watches the viral video in her office, surrounded by her hastily assembled crisis management team. "How bad is this situation?" she asks her communications director while reaching for her emergency response protocols. "This is Rodney King bad. This is George Floyd bad. This could literally burn the city down if we don't handle every aspect of this perfectly from this moment forward." The mayor immediately calls a press conference for 2:30 in the afternoon, giving her staff exactly 6.5 hours to craft a response that might prevent riots. Her team begins drafting carefully worded statements, preparing detailed talking points, coordinating with federal authorities who will inevitably become involved in a case of this magnitude and visibility. At Children's Medical Center, Sophia's colleagues watch the videos circulating through hospital staff WhatsApp groups in stunned silence. Dr. Jennifer Reynolds, Sophia's longtime partner in the cardiac surgery program, stares at her phone in complete disbelief. "This is our Sophia. This is Dr. Carter. How could this happen to someone like her?" The hospital's public relations department goes into full crisis mode, fielding dozens of calls from reporters seeking comments about their prominent surgeon's public assault. The institution where Sophia has saved hundreds of children's lives suddenly finds itself part of a national news story with unpredictable implications. Sophia's daughter calls from Colombia, crying hysterically after seeing the videos shared throughout her campus. "Mom, everyone here is sharing videos of you being attacked. All my professors are talking about it. Are you okay? Should I fly home right now?" "Stay in school, baby," Sophia says, her maternal instincts overriding her own trauma and exhaustion. "I'm going to be fine. Your father and I will handle this situation appropriately." But even as Sophia tries to comfort her daughter with reassuring words, she knows that handling this will require a level of public strength she's not sure she possesses. The videos of her humiliation will exist forever, archived on servers around the world, available for viewing by anyone with an internet connection for decades to come. Brooks attempts to call his elderly parents in rural Florida, hopping to warn them before they see the news coverage. But when his father answers the phone, the disappointment in his voice is utterly crushing. "Son, I already saw it on the television. What you did to that woman, that's not how your mother and I raised you to treat people." "Dad, you don't understand the full situation." "I understand plenty, Daniel. I understand my son became the kind of man I'm ashamed to call family. The line goes dead, and Brooks realizes he's lost more than his job and career. He's lost his identity, his relationships, his place in the community where he's lived his entire life. By 9:15 in the morning, exactly 2 hours and 5 minutes after the assault began, #Justice for Sophia has been tweeted 5.1 million times. The story dominates every news cycle from morning talk shows to cable news networks to international broadcasts. Sophia Carter's assault has become more than a local incident. It's a symbol of everything wrong with policing in America. And in the governor's mansion, Sophia sits in her private bathroom, still wearing the borrowed sweatshirt from a stranger's kindness, staring at her reflection in the mirror, and trying to understand how a routine morning jog became a national crisis that will define the rest of her life. Special Agent Rebecca Martinez of the FBI's Civil Rights Division receives the call at 10:07 in the morning while reviewing case files in her Miami field office. Her supervisor's voice carries an urgency she's rarely heard in 16 years of federal law enforcement. Martinez, drop everything. We need you on the Carter case immediately. This is now a federal civil rights investigation with direct oversight from Washington. The governor's wife's assault, I saw it on the news feeds. Martinez's mind races through the implications. Cases involving elected officials require delicate handling, but cases involving police brutality against elected officials, family members, represent uncharted territory. It's bigger than news feeds now. The Attorney General's office called personally. They want a full civil rights violation investigation, pattern and practice review, and complete audit of the Miami PD's use of force protocols. You're the lead investigator. Martinez arrives at Riverside Park within 35 minutes, her federal credentials clearing a path through the growing crowd of reporters and protesters. The scene remains largely intact, Brooks and Martinez still present, the patrol car still positioned where Sophia's assault occurred, dozens of witnesses still providing statements to arriving investigators. She approaches the two officers with the methodical precision that has made her one of the Bureau's most successful civil rights investigators. Brooks and Martinez stand beside their patrol car like condemned men awaiting execution, their earlier confidence completely evaporated. Officers Brooks and Martinez, I'm Special Agent Rebecca Martinez, FBI Civil Rights Division. You're both subjects of a federal investigation for potential violations of Title 18, Section 242, deprivation of civil rights under color of law. Brooks' voice comes out as a croak. Agent Martinez, there's been a misunderstanding. We didn't know who she was. Martinez's expression doesn't change, as she studies both men with the analytical gaze of someone trained to read deception. Officer Brooks, are you telling me that Mrs. Carter's civil rights depend on her identity rather than her humanity? The question hangs in the air like a blade. Martinez shifts uncomfortably, realizing that every word they speak is being recorded, cataloged, and will likely be used against them in federal court. That's not what I meant, Brooks backpedals desperately. I meant we were responding to a legitimate call about suspicious activity. Martinez produces a digital tablet and shows them a preliminary timeline her team has already constructed. According to radio logs, the initial call came in at 6:23 in the morning. Mrs. Carter didn't begin running until 6:30. Would you like to explain how a suspicious activity report preceded the activity itself? The question reveals a level of federal preparation that terrifies both officers. The FBI has clearly been working this case since the first viral videos appeared, marshaling resources and evidence with frightening efficiency. Martinez interviews witnesses methodically, building a comprehensive record of events. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman who waved to Sophia during her run, provides crucial testimony about Sophia's routine presence in the neighborhood. She's been running this route for years, Mrs. Patterson explains, her voice shaking with emotion. She's always been polite, always said good morning. Those officers targeted her for no reason except the color of her skin. Dr. Harrison from Memorial University corroborates Sophia's professional standing. Dr. Carter is one of Miami's most respected pediatric surgeons. She's delivered medical lectures, participated in community health initiatives, and saved countless children's lives. The idea that she would be involved in criminal activity is absurd. Martinez's team collects physical evidence with forensic precision. Sophia's torn dress, photographed from multiple angles, clearly shows the extent of the officer's aggression. The expensive jewelry scattered on the asphalt demonstrates the implausibility of theft allegations. Most importantly, the numerous phone videos provide an unedited record of the entire encounter. Meanwhile, at FBI headquarters, forensic analysts begin examining Brooks and Martinez's employment records, looking for patterns that might indicate systematic civil rights violations. What they discover shocks even experienced investigators. Brooks' 16-year career reveals a disturbing pattern of complaints, all involving black citizens, all systematically dismissed by department leadership. Jessica Williams, a high school teacher, filed a complaint in 2020 after Brooks conducted an aggressive traffic stop that left her humiliated in front of her students. The complaint was dismissed as unsubstantiated despite witness testimony. Marcus Thompson, a bank vice president, complained in 2022 about being handcuffed and searched after Brooks claimed he fit the description of a robbery suspect. The robbery had occurred in a different city, making the stop completely unjustified. Again, the complaint was dismissed. Keisha Davis, a nurse at Memorial Hospital, reported Brooks for conducting an inappropriate body search during a traffic violation in 2023. She specifically alleged that Brooks touched her inappropriately while claiming to search for weapons. The complaint disappeared into the department's bureaucracy without meaningful investigation. Martinez's team identifies 51 complaints against Brooks over his career, with an overwhelming majority involving black women. The pattern reveals not isolated incidents of misconduct, but systematic predatory behavior protected by institutional indifference. Agent Martinez, her forensic analyst, reports, Brooks' complaint record shows clear evidence of sexual predation disguised as police procedure. He specifically targets black women in affluent neighborhoods using pretextual stops to justify inappropriate searches. The analysis extends to Martinez's record, revealing his role as an enabler and co-conspirator. While Martinez has fewer direct complaints, witness statements consistently place him as present during Brooks' most egregious violations, providing backup and legitimacy to illegal searches. Martinez interviews other victims as word spreads about the federal investigation. Women who had been too intimidated to come forward initially begin sharing their experiences, encouraged by Sophia's prominence and the FBI's obvious commitment to pursuing justice. Dr. Angela Washington, a psychiatrist at Memorial University, describes an encounter from 2021. Brooks stopped me outside my office building claiming someone reported suspicious activity. He made me remove my jacket and shoes, then searched through my purse while making comments about expensive items he claimed I couldn't afford. I felt violated and humiliated, but who was going to believe me against a police officer? Lisa Thompson, a social worker, recounts a 2022 incident where Brooks forced her to submit to a body search after claiming her car matched the description of a vehicle involved in a crime. He made me spread my legs and put my hands on his patrol car while he searched me inappropriately. When I asked for a female officer, he told me I didn't get to make requests. Each new victim's account adds another layer to the federal case, transforming Sophia's assault from an isolated incident into evidence of systematic civil rights violations spanning multiple years. Martinez's investigation reveals the institutional corruption that enabled Brooks' behavior. Police Chief Anderson's signature appears on dismissal letters for numerous complaints against Brooks, often with minimal investigation. The pattern suggests either gross incompetence or active cover-up. Internal emails obtained through federal subpoenas reveal disturbing communications between department leadership. In one email, Chief Anderson refers to civil rights complaints as nuisance paperwork and instructs supervisors to handle these quickly and quietly. Another email discusses strategies for protecting good officers from frivolous accusations. The police union's role becomes increasingly clear as Martinez's team examines financial records. Union lawyer David Harrison received substantial payments for defending Brooks against previous complaints, creating a financial incentive to suppress allegations rather than address misconduct. Harrison's legal strategies, revealed through court filings and internal documents, consistently involved attacking victims' credibility rather than addressing officers' conduct. His standard approach included investigating victims' personal lives, questioning their motivation for filing complaints, and using their race and socioeconomic status to undermine their credibility. Martinez interviews retired Miami PD officers who express relief that someone is finally investigating the department's culture. Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, who retired in 2021 after 26 years, speaks candidly about the toxic environment. Brooks was untouchable, Rodriguez explains. Everyone knew he had problems with black women, but nobody wanted to challenge him. He had connections, union protection, and a reputation for retaliation against officers who crossed him. Rodriguez describes instances where she witnessed Brooks' inappropriate behavior, but felt powerless to intervene. The department culture protected guys like Brooks while silencing officers who tried to do the right thing. It's a relief that someone with real authority is finally listening. The investigation expands to include patrol car dashboard camera footage that the department initially claimed was malfunctioning during Sophia's assault. FBI technical specialists recover the supposedly corrupted data, revealing that the cameras were deliberately disabled before Brooks and Martinez approached Sophia. Digital forensic analysis of Brooks' personal devices yields shocking evidence of his predatory mindset. Text messages between Brooks and Martinez, sent just hours before Sophia's assault, reveal their intent to target black women in affluent neighborhoods. "Let's go hunting for some uppity blacks today," Brooks texted at 5:52 in the morning, 45 minutes before Sophia began her run. Martinez's response was equally damning. "I love it when they cry and beg, makes my day." The text messages provide federal prosecutors with direct evidence of premeditation and racial motivation, elevating potential charges from simple civil rights violations to federal hate crimes with significantly longer sentences. Martinez's team discovers that Brooks maintained a private photo collection on his personal phone, trophy images of black women he had humiliated during traffic stops and searches. The collection contains 134 photos spanning 9 years, each image showing women in degrading positions with visible distress on their faces. "This isn't policing," Martinez reports to her supervisor. "This is sexual predation enabled by a badge and systematic institutional cover-up." Brooks used his authority to victimize women, and the department protected him from consequences. The investigation reveals financial corruption alongside the civil rights violations. Martinez's forensic accountants discover that Chief Anderson received regular payments from the police union's legal defense fund, creating a direct financial incentive to dismiss complaints against problematic officers like Brooks. Bank records show Anderson received $51,000 in consulting fees from the union over the past 3 years, payments that coincided with his dismissal of serious misconduct allegations. The arrangement represents a clear conflict of interest and potential federal corruption charges. Martinez's team uncovers evidence that Mayor Rodriguez's office was aware of complaints about Brooks, but chose to ignore them for political reasons. Internal memos reveal discussions about avoiding negative publicity during election years by suppressing police misconduct investigations. The mayor's chief of staff specifically instructed department liaison to minimize civil rights complaints during the 2023 election cycle. Martinez's analyst reports they were more concerned with political optics than constitutional violations. The federal investigation expands to include the training academy where Brooks and Martinez received their police education. Academy records reveal a culture of racial bias embedded in the curriculum itself. Training materials obtained through federal subpoenas contain references to urban crime patterns that clearly stereotype minority communities. One training module describes black women as likely to be confrontational and require firm control, providing pseudo-academic justification for the aggressive tactics Brooks employed. Martinez interviews current and former academy instructors who describe a culture where constitutional rights training was treated as a bureaucratic requirement rather than essential law enforcement principles. Cadets learned that their authority was absolute. One retired instructor confides. Nobody taught them about limits or accountability. The investigation reveals that Brooks' Academy class included several officers who later faced civil rights violations, suggesting systematic problems in training and recruitment. Martinez's team identifies patterns of misconduct that trace back to specific training cohorts, indicating institutional rather than individual failures. As the federal investigation deepens, political ramifications begin spreading throughout Florida's power structure. Governor Carter faces pressure to demonstrate decisive leadership while managing his personal anguish over his wife's trauma. Martinez's final evidence collection includes financial records showing the full cost of institutional cover-up. The city of Miami has paid over $2.6 million in settlements for Brooks-related complaints over the past decade, money that came from taxpayers rather than holding the officer accountable. The city essentially operated an insurance fund for Brooks victims, Martinez explains to federal prosecutors. They found it cheaper to pay settlements than address the underlying problem. Martinez prepares her preliminary report for Washington, knowing that the evidence she's collected will likely result in federal charges against Brooks and Martinez, as well as a comprehensive consent decree requiring Miami PD to undergo fundamental reform under federal oversight. This isn't just about two bad officers, Martinez explains to her supervisor during a secure video conference. This is about a department culture that enabled systematic civil rights violations for over a decade. Sophia Carter's assault was the inevitable result of institutional failure that reaches the highest levels of city government. The federal investigation has transformed from a single incident review into a comprehensive examination of systematic civil rights violations, corruption, and institutional failure that will reshape Miami's entire approach to policing and accountability. Dr. Sophia Carter sits in her attorney's office 3 days after the assault, her hands still trembling slightly as she reviews the mounting evidence that Rebecca Martinez's federal investigation has uncovered. Her civil rights lawyer, Marcus Williams, spreads photographs and documents across the mahogany conference table like pieces of a horrific puzzle. Sophia, what the FBI has found goes far beyond what happened to you, Williams explains, his voice carrying the weight of someone who has spent 21 years fighting police misconduct cases. Agent Martinez has documented a pattern of systematic abuse that spans Brooks' entire career. Williams produces a thick file containing victim statements from 29 women who have come forward since Sophia's assault went viral. Each account follows a similar pattern: pretextual stops, inappropriate searches, racial harassment, and institutional cover-up. Listen to this, Williams says, reading from Dr. Angela Washington's sworn statement. Brooks forced me to remove my blouse during what he called a weapons search outside my medical office. He photographed me in my bra, claiming it was for evidence. When I filed a complaint, Chief Anderson dismissed it as unsubstantiated without interviewing a single witness. Sophia closes her eyes, recognizing the familiar pattern of humiliation she experienced. How many others? 29 confirmed victims so far. The FBI believes there may be more who haven't come forward yet. Williams slides another document across the table. This is Brooks' complaint history. 51 allegations over 16 years, all dismissed or buried by department leadership. The numbers hit Sophia like physical blows. 51 women subjected to Brooks' predatory behavior, while the system that should have protected them actively participated in covering up his crimes. Her assault wasn't an aberration. It was the culmination of decades of institutional failure. There's more, Williams continues, producing a manila envelope marked Federal Evidence Confidential. Agent Martinez's team recovered Brooks' personal phone records and found something that will ensure he never walks free again. Williams shows Sophia screenshots of text messages between Brooks and Martinez sent just hours before her assault. The messages reveal not just racial hatred, but explicit planning for sexual assault disguised as police procedure. "We're going hunting for some rich blacks today," Brooks' 5:52 message read. "Time to teach these people where they belong." Martinez's response was equally damning. "My favorite part is when they beg and cry. Should we record this one for later?" Sophia stares at the messages in horror, realizing how close she came to something far worse than what she experienced. These men weren't just racist cops having a bad day. They were sexual predators who had turned their badges into hunting licenses. "They plan to record my assault." Sophia's voice barely rises above a whisper. Agent Martinez believes they intended to create trophy videos, similar to the trophy photographs they've been taking for years. "Your prominent position probably saved you from the worst of their intentions. They got scared when they realized who you were." Williams produces another set of documents that make Sophia's stomach turn. FBI digital forensic specialists had recovered Brooks' deleted photo collection, 134 images of black women in various stages of humiliation and undress, all taken during what Brooks claimed were legitimate police encounters. This photo collection spans 9 years, Williams explains. Brooks kept these images as personal trophies, organizing them by date and location. Some photos show women crying, others show them partially clothed after searches. All appear to have been taken without consent during police encounters. Sophia recognizes the predatory pattern from her own experience. Brooks' search of her body, his obvious enjoyment of her humiliation, the way Martinez photographed her half-dressed state, it was all part of a well-practiced routine of sexual violation disguised as law enforcement. What about the department's role in covering this up? Williams slides across a series of internal emails that FBI subpoenas had obtained from city servers. The correspondence reveals a systematic effort to protect Brooks from accountability that reaches the highest levels of Miami's government. Chief Anderson received direct payments from the police union totaling $51,000 over 3 years, Williams explains. These payments coincided with his dismissal of serious complaints against Brooks and other problematic officers. Sophia reads an email from Anderson to his deputy chief. "The mayor's office wants Brooks' complaint file cleaned up before the election. Handle it quietly and make sure there's no paper trail that leads back to City Hall." Another email sent just 7 months before Sophia's assault shows Anderson instructing supervisors to minimize contact with civil rights groups and avoid creating discoverable records when handling misconduct complaints. They knew, Sophia says, her voice hardening with rage. They all knew what Brooks was doing, and they actively helped him continue doing it. Williams nods grimly. The FBI has identified at least 13 city officials who had direct knowledge of Brooks' pattern of abuse and chose to ignore or actively suppress it. This goes all the way to the mayor's office. Agent Martinez arrives at the law office carrying additional evidence that further demonstrates the scope of institutional corruption. She produces academy training records that reveal how officers like Brooks were systematically taught to view constitutional rights as obstacles rather than principles. Brooks' training cohort received instruction that explicitly described black women as combative and likely to resist authority, Martinez explains. The academy actually taught officers that aggressive tactics were necessary when dealing with minority citizens in affluent areas. Martinez shows Sophia a training manual that contains a section titled "Dealing with Uppity Suspects." The manual instructs officers to establish dominance quickly and use all available tools to ensure compliance, language that provided academic cover for the tactics Brooks employed. The training materials essentially gave officers permission to do what Brooks did to you, Martinez explains. The department created a culture where constitutional violations were not just tolerated but actively encouraged. Sophia learns that the Academy's bias training consisted of a single 4-hour session taught by an instructor who had previously been sued for racial discrimination. The training emphasized officer safety and authority while barely mentioning citizens' rights or appropriate use of force. Martinez produces financial records showing that Miami has paid over $3.5 million in settlements related to Brooks and officers from his training cohort over the past decade. Rather than addressing the underlying training problems, city leadership chose to treat settlement payments as a cost of doing business. The city's risk management department actually budgeted for these settlements, Martinez reveals. They found it cheaper to pay victims than to reform their training and accountability systems. Williams shows Sophia additional evidence of Brooks' predatory behavior that extends beyond his police duties. Bank records reveal that Brooks used department resources to conduct background checks on women he encountered during traffic stops, using their personal information for stalking purposes. Brooks accessed DMV records for 19 women he had stopped, checking their home addresses, employment information, and family details, Williams explains. This represents a serious federal crime independent of his civil rights violations. Martinez's investigation discovered that Brooks had driven past the homes of several women he had previously searched, sometimes months after their encounters. Security camera footage from neighborhood surveillance systems showed his patrol car conducting slow drive-bys past victims' residences during off-duty hours. He was stalking these women, Martinez states flatly, using his position to gather personal information, and then using that information to continue victimizing them psychologically. Sophia realizes she needs to review her own home security systems, understanding that Brooks' obsession with his victims might extend to her family. The violation she experienced in the park was just the beginning of what could have been years of harassment and intimidation. Martinez presents evidence of witness intimidation that occurred immediately after Sophia's assault went viral. Brooks' associates within the department attempted to pressure park witnesses into recanting their statements or claiming they didn't see the events clearly. 2 witnesses received calls from unknown individuals suggesting they might face legal problems if they continued cooperating with federal investigators, Martinez reports. We've traced those calls back to phones registered to Miami PD officers who work with Brooks. The intimidation efforts extended to Sophia's medical colleagues at Children's Medical Center. Hospital administrators received anonymous calls questioning Sophia's mental stability and professional competence, obvious attempts to undermine her credibility before federal prosecutors build their case. Someone called the hospital's board of directors claiming you had a history of making false accusations against male colleagues, Williams explains. Hospital security traced the call to a phone registered to Martinez's girlfriend. Martinez's team discovered that the police union had hired private investigators to conduct opposition research on Sophia and other victims who came forward. The investigators attempted to find evidence of past trauma, mental health issues, or personal problems that could be used to question victims' credibility. They were building files to destroy the victims rather than addressing the officers' misconduct, Martinez explains. This represents a systematic effort to obstruct federal justice that will result in additional charges against union leadership. Sophia learns that her assault has triggered federal investigation into similar patterns in other Florida police departments. Martinez's team identified training materials and complaint dismissal patterns that suggest Brooks' department wasn't unique in protecting predatory officers. We're finding similar training protocols and cover-up mechanisms in departments throughout the state, Martinez reports. Your case has opened the door to examining systematic civil rights violations across Florida's law enforcement community. Williams presents Sophia with medical records documenting the physical and psychological trauma she suffered during the assault. Emergency room physicians found evidence of bruising consistent with aggressive handling, while psychological evaluations confirm post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms. The medical evidence alone would support federal assault charges, Williams explains. Combined with the civil rights violations, Brooks is looking at decades in federal prison. Martinez provides Sophia with an update on the federal grand jury proceedings that will determine formal charges against Brooks, Martinez, and potentially other officials. The grand jury has heard testimony from multiple victims and reviewed thousands of documents collected during the investigation. The grand jury will likely return indictments next week, Martinez predicts. We're recommending charges under multiple federal statutes, including civil rights violations, sexual assault, stalking, witness intimidation, and public corruption. Sophia realizes that her morning jog has triggered the largest civil rights investigation in Florida's recent history. While the personal cost has been enormous, the evidence mounting against Brooks and his enablers suggests that justice might finally be possible for all his victims. The Florida State Capitol's press conference room fills beyond capacity on a crisp Tuesday morning, exactly 2 weeks after Sophia Carter's assault. Representatives from CNN, Fox News, BBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, and dozens of international outlets position their cameras with military precision. The story has transcended local news to become a global symbol of American institutional failure and the power of individual courage. Sophia enters the room wearing a navy blue power suit that transforms her from victim back into the formidable professional who has shaped Florida policy for years. Her diamond wedding ring catches the camera lights, the same ring that was scattered on asphalt 15 days ago. The visual symbolism is intentional and powerful. Behind her walk Governor Michael Carter, FBI Special Agent Rebecca Martinez, and federal prosecutor James Patterson. The presence of federal authority signals that this press conference will deliver more than statements. It will deliver justice in real time. Sophia approaches the podium with the measured confidence of someone who has spent years commanding respect in operating rooms and boardrooms. When she speaks, her voice carries the authority of truth backed by overwhelming evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today not as the governor's wife, but as a survivor of sexual assault perpetrated by officers sworn to protect and serve the citizens of Florida. The reframing is deliberate and devastating. Sophia has chosen to define Brooks' actions as sexual assault rather than police misconduct, elevating the moral stakes and legal implications of the encounter. 2 weeks ago, Sergeant Daniel Brooks and Officer Robert Martinez conducted a systematic campaign of racial and sexual violence against me, while the black woman they humiliated in the park was the governor's wife. Continuation from where the script ended. I stood before you today not as the governor's wife, but as a survivor of sexual assault perpetrated by officers sworn to protect and serve the citizens of Florida. 2 weeks ago, Sergeant Daniel Brooks and Officer Robert Martinez conducted a systematic campaign of racial and sexual violence against me while I was exercising in Riverside Park. They handcuffed me, tore my clothing, photographed me half naked, and subjected me to searches that had nothing to do with law enforcement and everything to do with power and degradation. The room falls into absolute silence as Sophia pauses, letting her words sink into the consciousness of reporters who have covered countless press conferences, but have never witnessed anything like this level of raw honesty from someone in her position. But I am not here to talk only about what happened to me, Sophia continues, her voice growing stronger. FBI Special Agent Martinez has uncovered evidence that my assault was not an isolated incident. It was the predictable result of a department culture that protected predatory officers for over a decade. Agent Martinez steps forward, her federal credentials lending weight to every word that follows. Our investigation has identified 34 confirmed victims of Sergeant Brooks' pattern of sexual violence disguised as police procedure, Martinez announces. These women span diverse backgrounds, but they share common characteristics. They are predominantly black women who Brooks encountered in affluent neighborhoods where he believed they didn't belong. Martinez produces a presentation board showing photographs of victims who have given permission to share their images. Each face tells a story of trauma and institutional betrayal. Brooks maintained a private collection of trophy photographs showing women in various states of undress during what he claimed were legitimate searches. Martinez continues. This collection contains 147 images spanning 10 years. Each photograph represents a federal crime. The reporters erupt with questions, but Martinez raises her hand for silence. Additionally, we have recovered text messages between Brooks and Martinez sent just hours before Mrs. Carter's assault, messages that demonstrate premeditation and racial motivation. These messages will support federal hate crime charges in addition to civil rights violations. Federal prosecutor James Patterson approaches the podium, carrying the weight of justice that victims have awaited for years. This morning, a federal grand jury returned indictments against Sergeant Daniel Brooks and Officer Robert Martinez on multiple charges, Patterson announces. Brooks faces 23 federal counts including deprivation of civil rights under color of law, sexual assault, stalking, witness intimidation, and hate crimes. Martinez faces 17 federal counts as an accomplice and co-conspirator. Patterson pauses as reporters frantically type, and cameras capture every moment of this historic announcement. Additionally, former police chief Thomas Anderson has been indicted on 8 counts of obstruction of justice and public corruption for his role in systematically covering up complaints against Brooks and other officers. Mayor Helen Rodriguez faces federal charges for her knowledge of and participation in suppressing civil rights investigations for political purposes. The scope of the indictments stuns even experienced reporters who thought they understood the magnitude of the scandal. This isn't just about 2 bad officers anymore. This is about an entire system of institutional corruption being dismantled in real time. Sophia returns to the microphone, her presence commanding absolute attention. Every victim who came forward after my assault showed extraordinary courage, Sophia says. They risked retaliation, public scrutiny, and personal trauma to ensure that what happened to them would never happen to another woman in our community. Sophia gestures to the side of the room where several victims sit together, their presence a powerful statement of solidarity and survival. Dr. Angela Washington sits beside Lisa Thompson, who sits beside Jessica Williams. Each woman represents years of silence finally broken. These women are heroes, Sophia declares. They chose truth over fear, justice over comfort. They refused to let institutional power silence their voices. Governor Carter steps forward, his expression carrying both personal anguish and professional determination. As governor of Florida, I am announcing immediate executive action to address the systematic failures revealed by this investigation, Carter announces. Effective immediately, I am ordering a comprehensive review of use of force policies, complaint procedures, and training protocols in every law enforcement agency across our state. Carter produces an executive order that will reshape Florida policing for generations. This order mandates federal oversight of the Miami Police Department until they demonstrate compliance with constitutional standards, Carter explains. It requires all departments statewide to implement body camera programs with footage subject to independent civilian review. It creates a statewide database tracking officer misconduct that will follow problematic officers from department to department. The reforms represent the most comprehensive police accountability measures Florida has ever implemented, born directly from Sophia's trauma and the courage of victims who refuse to remain silent. Additionally, Carter continues, I am proposing legislation that will eliminate qualified immunity for officers who engage in civil rights violations. Police officers who violate constitutional rights will face personal financial liability, not just departmental consequences. The proposal sends shockwaves through law enforcement communities, but Carter's political capital has never been higher. Public opinion overwhelmingly supports comprehensive reform after watching Sophia's assault unfold on social media. Sophia takes questions from reporters, each answer demonstrating the eloquence and strength that have defined her public life. Mrs. Carter, how do you respond to people who say you're only getting justice because of your position? Asks a reporter from the Miami Herald. Sophia's response is immediate and powerful. That criticism is absolutely valid and reveals exactly why systematic reform is necessary. Every woman who came forward deserves the same justice I'm receiving. The tragedy is that it took an assault on the governor's wife to trigger accountability that should have happened after the first victim came forward 10 years ago. Her answer transforms potential criticism into an argument for broader reform, demonstrating the political skill that has made her one of Florida's most effective advocates. Another reporter asks about the psychological impact of her assault and its aftermath. I have struggled with anger, fear, and profound violation, Sophia admits. There are moments when I don't feel safe in public spaces that I once loved, but I refuse to let Brooks and Martinez define my relationship with my community. Healing is possible, justice is achievable, and change is necessary. Her honesty about trauma makes her more relatable rather than less powerful, humanizing the First Lady in ways that typical political messaging never could. Agent Martinez fields questions about the ongoing investigation and potential additional charges. Our investigation continues to expand as more victims come forward and additional evidence emerges, Martinez explains. We are examining similar patterns in other Florida departments and coordinating with civil rights divisions in neighboring states where Brooks training cohort members now work. The implication is clear. Sophia's assault has triggered a regional examination of police culture that will extend far beyond Miami's city limits. Federal prosecutor Patterson addresses questions about potential sentences for convicted officers. If convicted on all counts, Brooks faces up to 67 years in federal prison, Patterson states. Martinez faces up to 43 years. Former Chief Anderson faces up to 25 years. These are not concurrent sentences. Federal time is served day for day with no early release. The numbers represent effective life sentences for men in their 40s and 50s, ensuring they will never again have opportunity to victimize vulnerable citizens. Sophia concludes the press conference with a statement that will be quoted in news coverage worldwide. To every woman who has been violated by those sworn to protect you, I see you. To every victim who was dismissed, ignored, or intimidated into silence, I believe you. To every person who has questioned whether justice is possible in the face of institutional power, I promise you that change is coming. The press conference ends with Sophia surrounded by the other victims, their unified presence creating an image of solidarity that dominates news coverage across every platform. The photograph of these women standing together becomes an instant symbol of courage confronting corruption. Within hours, #WeBelieveSurvivors is trending globally with over 8 million tweets. The story has transcended its origins as a local incident to become a cultural moment, a turning point in conversations about police accountability, racial justice, and the power of institutional courage. 6 months after the assault, Sophia Carter stands in a federal courtroom watching as Judge Patricia Richardson delivers sentences that will reshape 3 lives forever. Daniel Brooks, you have been found guilty on all 23 federal counts, Judge Richardson announces, her voice carrying the weight of institutional authority finally directed toward justice rather than protection of power. Brooks sits at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his earlier confidence completely extinguished. The 16-year career that once defined his identity has been reduced to a cautionary tale about unchecked authority and institutional failure. The evidence presented during this trial revealed a pattern of predatory behavior spanning your entire law enforcement career. Richardson continues. You used the badge and authority entrusted to you by the citizens of Florida to terrorize, humiliate, and sexually assault women who had every right to feel safe in their communities. Brooks stares at the table, unable or unwilling to meet the judge's gaze as she catalogs his crimes with clinical precision. You specifically targeted black women in affluent neighborhoods, exploiting racial prejudices and institutional protection to engage in systematic sexual violence. Your trophy photograph collection demonstrates that you viewed these assaults not as aberrations to be regretted, but as conquests to be celebrated. Richardson pauses, allowing the full weight of Brooks' depravity to settle over the courtroom packed with victims, reporters, and citizens hungry for accountability. This court sentences you to 67 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. You will serve this sentence in its entirety under the most restrictive conditions available in the federal system. Brooks' shoulders slump as the reality of dying in prison becomes concrete rather than theoretical. At 43 years old, he will likely never experience freedom again. The judge turns her attention to Robert Martinez, whose role as enabler and co-conspirator earned him his own substantial punishment. Officer Martinez, you were found guilty on all 17 federal counts of being an accomplice to Sergeant Brooks' crimes. While you may not have initiated these assaults, you facilitated them, documented them, and helped create the environment where they could continue for over a decade. Martinez's expression shows resignation rather than the defiance that characterized Brooks' demeanor. Your text messages reveal that you derived pleasure from witnessing the suffering of Brooks' victims. Your photographs were not evidence documentation, but souvenirs of conquest. Your silence about Brooks' misconduct made you a full partner in his crimes. Richardson delivers Martinez's sentence with the same unflinching clarity that characterized Brooks' judgment. This court sentences you to 43 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. You will surrender all law enforcement credentials, forfeit your pension, and register as a sex offender upon your eventual release, should you live that long. The final defendant is former police chief Thomas Anderson, whose institutional protection enabled years of abuse. Chief Anderson, your conviction on 8 counts of obstruction of justice and public corruption represents a betrayal of public trust that is difficult to overstate, Richardson says. You received complaints about Sergeant Brooks from multiple victims over many years. Rather than investigating these complaints or holding Brooks accountable, you actively participated in covering up his crimes. Anderson sits rigidly in his chair, maintaining the authoritative posture that defined his 32-year career, even as that career burns to ash around him. Your emails demonstrate that you dismissed civil rights complaints as nuisance paperwork and instructed supervisors to minimize investigations that might create negative publicity. You accepted financial payments from the police union in direct exchange for protecting problematic officers from accountability. Richardson's voice hardens with each sentence, her judicial restraint barely containing obvious disgust for Anderson's institutional corruption. Most damningly, you continued protecting Brooks even after the FBI investigation began, attempting to intimidate witnesses and destroy evidence that might implicate department leadership in systematic civil rights violations. Anderson's sentence reflects both his crimes and his position of authority that made those crimes possible. This court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison. You will forfeit your police pension, pay restitution to all identified victims, and be permanently barred from any position of public trust. The 3 men who terrorized Sophia Carter and dozens of other women will spend the rest of their meaningful lives behind bars, their freedom exchanged for the trauma they inflicted so casually on vulnerable citizens. But the courtroom drama isn't finished. Mayor Helen Rodriguez stands before Judge Richardson, awaiting judgment for her role in the institutional cover-up. Mayor Rodriguez, your conviction on 5 counts of obstructing civil rights investigations and public corruption demonstrates how political considerations can corrupt the very foundations of justice, Richardson says. Rodriguez maintains the polished appearance that helped her win 3 elections, but her political career ended the moment federal prosecutors revealed her direct knowledge of Brooks' pattern of abuse. You received detailed reports about Sergeant Brooks' misconduct and chose to suppress investigations because you feared negative publicity during election campaigns. You instructed department liaisons to minimize contact with civil rights organizations and avoid creating discoverable records that might expose the city to liability. Richardson's judgment cuts through the political spin that Rodriguez has attempted throughout her trial. Your actions prioritized your political survival over the constitutional rights of the citizens you swore to serve. You transformed city government into an accomplice in systematic sexual violence. Rodriguez's sentence reflects both her crimes and the aggravating factor of her elected position. This court sentences you to 15 years in federal prison. You will forfeit your mayoral pension, pay substantial fines, and be permanently barred from holding any elected or appointed public office. The courtroom erupts in applause as decades of institutional corruption receive the accountability that victims have sought for years. Judge Richardson gavels for order, but allows the celebration to continue for several moments before restoring judicial decorum. Sophia watches from the front row as the defendants are led away in shackles, their earlier confidence replaced by the hollow-eyed stare of people confronting consequences they never believed would arrive. She feels no satisfaction in their suffering, only relief that they can never victimize another woman. After the sentencing hearing concludes, Sophia joins the other victims outside the federal courthouse for a final press conference. The group has grown closer during 6 months of trials, testimony, and shared trauma processing. Dr. Angela Washington speaks first, her voice strong despite the tears streaming down her face. For years, I believed I was alone, that what happened to me was somehow my fault or my imagination, Washington says. Learning that 33 other women experienced similar trauma from the same officer was simultaneously devastating and liberating. We were not crazy. We were targeted. Lisa Thompson adds her voice to the chorus of survivors, finding power in shared truth. The system that should have protected us instead protected our abuser, Thompson explains. Every complaint dismissed, every investigation suppressed, every victim intimidated into silence was a choice made by people who valued institutional reputation over human dignity. Jessica Williams addresses the cameras with the passion of someone who has transformed personal trauma into public advocacy. Today's sentences are not just about punishing individual bad actors, Williams declares. They represent a fundamental shift in how our society treats victims who dare to speak truth to power. We were believed. We were heard. Justice was possible. Sophia steps forward for her final public statement on the assault that changed her life and triggered systemic reform across Florida. 6 months ago, I stood in Riverside Park experiencing the kind of violation that most people only fear in nightmares, Sophia begins. 2 officers systematically stripped away my dignity, my safety, and my sense of belonging in my own community. They did this because they believed my race and gender made me vulnerable, that institutional power would protect them from accountability. She pauses, gathering the emotional strength to continue. They were wrong, not because I am the governor's wife, but because every victim who came forward after my assault refused to let institutional power silence their truth. These women, my sisters in survival, transformed their individual trauma into collective power that could not be ignored or dismissed. Sophia gestures to the women standing beside her, their presence a living monument to courage confronting corruption. Today's sentences close one chapter but open another, Sophia continues. The real work begins now, implementing the reforms that will prevent future generations from experiencing what we endured. Body cameras, civilian oversight, misconduct databases, ending qualified immunity, these are not abstract policy discussions. They are the tools that will save lives and protect dignity. She looks directly into the cameras, speaking to the millions watching this moment unfold across news networks and social media platforms worldwide. To every person who has been dismissed, ignored, or told that justice is impossible in the face of institutional power, I offer our story as evidence that change is achievable. It requires courage. It demands persistence. It costs emotional labor that no victim should have to provide. But it is possible. Sophia's final words at the courthouse steps become the defining quote of her public advocacy. We cannot change what happened to us, but we can ensure that what happened to us changes everything that comes after. That is the promise of justice. That is the power of truth. That is the legacy we claim from our trauma. 1 year after the assault, Sophia Carter returns to Riverside Park for the first time since that devastating morning. The path looks exactly as she remembers: perfectly manicured lawns, tennis courts where the elite gather, the lake reflecting morning sunlight like liquid silver. But everything has changed in ways visible and invisible. A bronze plaque has been installed near the bench where Sophia used to stretch, commemorating the victims who came forward and the reforms their courage made possible. The plaque reads, "In honor of survivors who transformed personal trauma into systemic change, your voices matter, your truth prevails, your courage changes worlds." Sophia stands before the memorial, joined by her husband, her daughter home from medical school, and several of the women who testified against Brooks. They came together to reclaim this space, to prove that trauma does not have permanent ownership of geography. "Are you ready?" Governor Carter asks his wife gently, holding her hand with the tenderness of someone who has watched her fight through months of healing. Sophia nods, unable to speak around the emotion constricting her throat. She's wearing new running shoes, expensive Nikes purchased specifically for this moment. Her athletic dress is similar to the one Brooks destroyed, a conscious choice to not let his violence dictate her wardrobe. Together, the group begins walking the route that Sophia used to run 913 times in 4 years. Each step represents reclamation, each breath a declaration that survivors can return to spaces where trauma occurred and find healing rather than just pain. Mrs. Patterson emerges from her home with fresh flowers, approaching Sophia with tears streaming down her elderly face. "My dear girl, I have thought about you every single day since that terrible morning," Mrs. Patterson says, embracing Sophia with genuine affection. "I am so proud of your courage and so grateful that justice was finally possible." Sophia hugs the elderly woman who witnessed her assault, grateful for witnesses who refused to look away when looking away would have been easier. The morning regulars, joggers, dog walkers, tennis players acknowledge Sophia with respectful nods and warm smiles. Many wear purple ribbons, the color that has become associated with the survivors' advocacy group formed in the aftermath of Brooks' conviction. Dr. Harrison from Memorial University approaches with his wife, both wearing shirts that read, "We believe survivors," in bold letters. Dr. Carter, on behalf of the medical community, thank you for using your platform to demand accountability and reform, Harrison says. The changes you've championed will protect countless people from experiencing what you endured. Sophia completes her 5.5-mile loop, her form textbook perfect despite the emotional weight she carries. When she returns to the starting point, she finds a small crowd has gathered spontaneously, community members who came to show support and solidarity. A young black woman in her early 20s approaches nervously, holding a handwritten sign that reads, "Thank you for fighting." "Mrs. Carter, I just wanted to say that watching your courage helped me report my own assault by a campus police officer," the young woman explains. "Your story made me believe that speaking up was possible. Because of you, my attacker is facing charges instead of continuing to hurt other students." Sophia embraces the stranger, knowing that this multiplication of courage represents the true legacy of her trauma. One voice became dozens, dozens became hundreds, hundreds became a movement that is reshaping how institutions treat victims who dare to speak truth. The gathering becomes an impromptu celebration of healing and reform. Someone produces coffee and pastries. Children play on the lawn while adults discuss the ongoing implementation of police reforms across Florida. Governor Carter announces a new initiative inspired by Sophia's advocacy. Today, I am pleased to announce the Survivors Justice Fund, a $20 million state investment to provide legal representation, counseling services, and financial support to victims of police misconduct. He declares, no survivor should have to choose between seeking justice and financial survival. The fund represents institutional recognition that supporting survivors requires resources, not just rhetoric. Applications will open next month, with priority given to cases involving systematic abuse protected by institutional cover-up. Sophia speaks to the gathering, her voice steady and strong. 1 year ago, I stood in this park believing my life was ending, she begins. In some ways, that belief was accurate. The person I was before the assault, confident, trusting, secure in the protection of institutions, that person did die here. She pauses, looking at the faces surrounding her with love and purpose. But from that death emerged someone stronger, someone angrier, someone determined to ensure that institutional power can never again shield predators from accountability. I am not grateful for what happened to me, but I am fiercely proud of what we have built from the ashes of that trauma. The crowd applauds as Sophia reclaims the space that nearly destroyed her, transforming geography of violation into landscape of victory.